Good evening. My name is Monty Martin, and this is the Dungeon Dudes live stream show. Tonight is a very special episode because to give our good friend Joe O'Gorman the night off to spend some time with family, we have decided to play some Call of Cthulhu. And so I am joined this evening just by my two very good friends.
I'm Kelly McLaughlin. I will be playing Norman Spector, the author, this evening. And we're also joined by our other very good friend.
Jill Donitis, and I will be playing Melanie Murphy, the local librarian. And cool kid.
So this is something that I've had on my list of things to do for quite some time. Ever since I am a huge fan, and Kelly is as well, of the Cthulhu mythos. And we've been always inspired by the works of H.P. Lovecraft and other writers for all of our kind of D&D related stuff. But we've wanted to be able to, on the show, actually go to the source and play some actual Call of Cthulhu. So I have my copy of the Call of Cthulhu starter set right here tonight. And all we have done is last night, Kelly, Jill, and I got together and reviewed the character sheets for Call of Cthulhu and rolled up some characters to play through. Because the Call of Cthulhu starter set has some pretty well reviewed adventures, and I thought, you know what? Let's just play them. So tonight, we are going to be playing the Call of Cthulhu starter set adventure Paper Chase, which is originally by John Sullivan and been revised by Mike Mason. So this is not an adventure created by myself. This is one that comes in the Call of Cthulhu starter set, and it's very cool because you can. One of the things I love about the starter set right off the bat was that it actually came with a solo adventure, Alone Against the Flames, which is like a choose your own adventure with RPG mechanics in it. I quite enjoyed that. And I had some dice in there too. The 24-page introductory rules was enough for us to make our own characters. And then we got this little rockin' adventure. So I'm gonna be running it out of the book. So we'll see how we do tonight. However, there is only one modification that we have made. The original adventure is set in 1922 in the United States, and we are setting our adventure this evening in 1991 in Southern Ontario. Um, so aside from changing the names of some locations and obviously the time period, we are pretty much running the adventure as written, or the scenario as written for Call of Cthulhu. So with that, um, shall we say, just as that first impression, Kelly, how would you describe the mechanics of Call of Cthulhu, just from what you've encountered so far, for
I
those that are
mean,
watching along with us that might have not have played COC before?
having never played it before, but having just made a character so far, it seems like if you have a grasp of D&D, you are okay to play Call of Cthulhu. There are a lot more skills involved. The only major difference is that when rolling on a skill or anything like that, you are rolling 2d10 and hoping to roll, I believe, under the percentile that is presented. So the higher your score is, upwards from 0 to 100, the higher it is, the more likely you are to roll under that. So that's really the only big change. But besides that, you have your sort of ability scores similar to the way that they're presented in D&D. You have a ton of skills, which there's a bunch of ones that you don't have in D&D, but they're all pretty self-explanatory. When you see something like electronics or library use or computers or medicine, you can kind of figure out what those would be useful for. Um, so, other than some mild adjustments, it took me very little time to adapt from my D&D mindset to Call of Cthulhu mindset, and I thought that was really exciting. It means that I feel already well equipped with only, what was it, like 2 hours of prep between the three of us
Mhm.
Yeah.
to do this.
Yeah, Call of Cthulhu character sheet is basically the ability scores plus the skills, and then everything else from there is descriptive. And so, Jill, what are kind of the what are the other stats that we had to track with this one that we put together? Because we got the traditional hit points, but what else is in here?
Yeah, there's some interesting ones like size, power, is it
Appearance.
appearance. So your appearance actually makes a difference in a stat. You had some sanity, which is
Yeah.
really interesting. We'll get there. We got some magic points. We still have movement, but it's not nearly as much as you get in D&D. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And of course, in Call of Cthulhu, there's no classes, there's no levels. Characters are all based around their. You kind of do have a profession based on a real world sort of vocation that helps determine where you can put your skill points and what sort of skills your character might have. But you then have a pool of discretionary points, and once characters are made, the only way there's no experience points to track. You're only gonna, but you do have to check off on the character sheet if you do use a skill. You have to check it off. If you survive, then you may level up that skill and get to increase it. But that's about it for the game. So there's
I do think there's one other thing to mention about Call of
yeah.
Cthulhu, and that is the hit points
Ooh.
and having damage done to you, as opposed to D&D, where I can take 100 hit points, depends on my character and level, but you can get hit 100 times and still slay a dragon. In this game, I'm pretty sure I have 10 hit points. Jill has 11, I think.
Yes.
And a pistol does 1d10 damage. So there is a possibility that if I get shot, I die. So it's a little bit more grounded in reality, which means that if we face unfathomable horrors, which, let's be real, we're just investigating a missing book, so nothing weird is going to happen tonight. But if we were to experience something unusual, I imagine our best bet is to avoid getting into a tussle with otherworldly beings, seeing as I have 10 hit points and something could poke me and I might die.
And so just before we fully get rolling, both of you need to make sure you got a D10 with the tens and a D10 with the ones, right? Because those are the ones to be rolling, and make sure you got an extra tens die, because there is an advantage disadvantage mechanic in COC. So you roll two of the ones that are tens and take the higher or lower when we do that. It's also worth noting that in Call of Cthulhu there is basically either the more difficult success, which is if you roll, I can say roll under your skill, roll under half your skill, or roll 1/5 your skill, the extreme difficulty. So that's how the difficulty scale works, and from there we'll figure it out as we go along. I'm sure we're going to make a ton of mistakes as we do with all this, but I think we'll also have a lot of fun. So, shall we set the scene?
Let's roll back to the 90s.
Roll back to the 90s. Travel back with me to the halcyon days of 1991 in Ontario. Now, of course, it is the early 90s in Canada, and a little bit there's a little bit of a recession settling in at this time, and we are just in the small town of Port Perry, Ontario, which is little bit north of Whitby. For those of you who know where that is, not far out from Toronto, a bit of a drive there. And so, as theaters are still booming with people having just watched Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and Beauty and the Beast has recently come out as well. What's these Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit is blaring on all the radios. And and the last vestiges of the 80s are still slipping away as we move into the new decade. There are still the local library in Port Perry is thrilled that they finally got one of those new Macs. And there's some talk now, for those that are really following the computer stuff, about things like this World Wide Web thing that's being proposed. And if you're a really wealthy business person, you might have a cell phone the size of a brick. And a few people have car phones, but that's pretty cool. Now, Port Perry, Ontario, is a picturesque town on the edge of a small of a lake. For those that might not know, it's located in Scugog County, Ontario, and it's got a little population of maybe about 7 or 8,000 people at this time, and the as the heart of its little township, the local hospital and the local Tim Hortons, the local library and the schools here are kind of the hub for the area, and it's well known for its historic Victorian downtown. Here on a rather overcast October day, two individuals are meeting at a local bistro to share lunch and a mystery, having received a phone call from one Tom Kimball regarding some missing books and a missing person. As we hop into the bustle of the local bistro in the downtown, first we meet Kelly. Would you like to introduce your character?
My character's name is Norman Spector. He's an author. He's written 4 novels so far, but only the first one has really gained any renown. Unfortunately for Norman, his first novel was regarded a masterpiece, did very well, and then every novel after that he's written is being held to a very high standard, and Norman believes that once you've written a masterpiece, if you don't write another masterpiece, then you're writing failures, and nobody cares. Unfortunately for Norman, this means that he has not been making a lot of money lately with his last few novels, and so he's running a little low on cash. Luckily, he thinks that this new manuscript that he has written is going to make a big difference. He thinks it's his best work yet. Norman is a 35-year-old man. He lives on 26 Clark Street in Port Perry, and it's the same house he grew up in. He took it over when his parents were moved into a home, and he's lived there his whole life. He's a lanky man with a stubbled beard, wire-framed glasses, messy brown hair that he tries to slick back, but it kind of does whatever it wants. He tends to wear an oversized button-up shirt, brown slacks, Converse shoes, because he's cool, and sometimes, occasionally, especially in the fall weather, he wears a nice sweater over top of his button-up. He likes to dress appropriately. He's almost always seen carrying a book of some sort or a journal, occasionally smoking a pipe. At this time, it is okay to smoke his pipe in.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
yeah.
It is.
And so he speaks a little frantically. He tends to speak out loud while he's thinking, stuttering in fast-paced tones. Although he is a shy and mildly inept social person, most people actually do find him quite charming, and he is a very kind soul. What is of most concerning to Norman, though, at this time is that seeing as computers are a newfangled thing that not everybody has, his new manuscript for his upcoming book was lent to Thomas Kimball, his good friend, for an early reading to get opinions on.
More
He typed
specifically,
it up.
Douglas Kimball.
Oh, right. Yes. Sorry. Douglas Kimball was reading my manuscript. And I haven't heard from him in several months, so I'm hoping he's gotten through it and has something exciting to tell me about it, because I'm really relying on that manuscript that I typed on my typewriter back in my office to do well for me.
And who have you met? Who is it that you've met in this little bistro here? Jill, introduce us to your character.
Coming in, skipping to tunes on my Walkman. I am Melanie Murphy. Melanie is a local resident, librarian, but a hip and cool librarian. She's only a few years out of her undergrad and came home to, hang out with her dad. He's aging. He's got rough knees. He needs a little bit of house, help around the house. Jacob Murphy. So I'm rent-free, saving a little bit to put down on my student loans. I may be 27, but I try to stay hip and cool with the kids and whatever they're doing, booyah and all that fun stuff, the slang. And I have helped Norman for a while now, ever since my undergrad days, with some research into some of his books. So we've connected. I've helped him find some really rare, cool books to kind of research and add into some perspectives that made his a few of his novels, a little pizzazzed. And, I see a lot of people come into the library. Douglas used to be one of my regulars. I haven't seen him in quite a while, especially since he has a bunch of books that are quite overdue. I've heard recently that, maybe something might have happened to him. So meeting Norman to find out maybe what he knows, because I know he's really good friends with him.
Well, the two of you sit down in the cafe. The tea or coffee or whatever you order for your lunches gets brought up to you as the two of you catch up with one another. You're expecting to meet Tommy Kimball here shortly to hear about what's been going on and hear the details. As you wait, what do you say to each other?
Normie.
Melanie.
Did something happen to Douglas? He hasn't been returning my phone calls, and he owes a lot of dollars in library money.
Do you actually make people pay their late fees? Because you've never really asked me for any of them.
You've been pretty diligent with bringing your books back, but yes, it's the way we pay for our fancy new computers that come. That Mac isn't gonna fund itself, so...
Yes, you got one of those new computers down at the library.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mac. It's got System 1. It's got that Motorola processor. It's really cool. I really tried to focus on new technologies in libraries in my studies, but in small towns like this, it's hard to get that kind of budget.
I think what you're doing is really cool with the computer and all. I'm sure some people that'll draw a younger crowd to the library. I have to say though, I'm sticking to my typewriter. I don't see typewriters going anywhere anytime soon, and I hope that this new computer thing it's neat, but I like the clickety clacks of my old keys, if you know what I mean. But I'm sure Douglas is fine. He has a tendency to get wrapped up in his readings, in his books, in his stories, and he doesn't answer the phone very often. Him and I are a lot alike. We tend to ignore our phones when they ring. I am hoping he's okay. I also haven't heard from him in some time, but I'm hoping his nephew can shed some light on what's been going on there.
Yeah, hopefully he'll give us the 411 on what the heck is going on with Douglas.
Just as you finish saying that, a man approaches you at your table. He is a rather tall, lanky fellow with long, stringy black hair. He's wearing a ripped up Metallica t-shirt and some jeans. And he approaches you, the two of you, and with a surprisingly friendly voice, he says, Norman? Melanie?
Thomas, please join us. Have a seat.
It's Tommy, please. Thanks.
My apologies.
Makes me sound like an old man. He grabs a chair from one of the nearby tables and pulls it up and sits down. Yeah, so thanks for taking my call. I know you were a friend of my uncle. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but yeah.
Bad news. What
well-
bad news?
Well,
Is he okay?
I mean, he's been gone for a while, so let me bring you up to speed on a few
Gone.
things.
Like on a
Okay.
trip.
Well, I haven't heard from him myself in about a year, and I just
Been a year.
well, yeah, and by the time anyone in the family, my dad's gone, and so my uncle it just has me, right? And I've been busy. I've been living in Montreal past couple years, so I got a call because I was the closest relative to him, and when I got the call, there were 6 months worth of unpaid bills on the electric and the on the house, and so I came down and spent the past couple months settling the affairs because no one's seen him, and well, he's been officially declared dead, missing but dead, and the house is mine now. I've been here only for a couple months now, just trying to get affairs in order and settled all down, because police came up with nothing. It was pretty strange, actually. Around the same time, there were, I asked around about it, and they said that there were 2 other girls that went missing in I think in the lake. The snowmobile club even funded this whole search and rescue thing in the lake, and nothing sort of came of it. But that's all I know is that he disappeared without a trace about a year ago. No one's seen him since, and I tried to make my own peace with it. I wasn't really close with him or anything like that, but I've been going through his stuff, packing things up, closing things down, and sort of the last thing that I had to do was his library, his study. And I was packing some things up just the other week, and then the next day I came in, and a whole box of the books that I'd packed up were gone. And I'm certain that I didn't take them out. I had them ready to go. I was going to bring them in the next day, take them off, donate them, bring them back on in. I think some of them had the library markings on them, and now they're gone.
Library books are missing now?
Well, I just remember in the box, I put them in the box. There was this typewritten manuscript, a bunch of library books, and a few other copies of some of my uncle's favorites. I thought I'd donate his favorites and this typed up rare looking manuscript and these library books. I was going to donate them to you, Melanie, for the library, right? He had a really good collection of his own, and I put them together and they were gone.
I'm sorry. There's a lot to take in here. You're telling me I know that I have a tendency to get wrapped up in my writing. I didn't realize it had been a year. This isn't unusual news for me. I tend to go into my own mind for months at a time when I'm working on a new book, but to hear that he's gone, Douglas is missing and presumed dead. That's a dear friend of mine, and on top of that, now that's the only copy of my manuscript.
I'm really sorry. I mean, he had a bunch of copies of your other books around, and that's how I put it together, that it might have been, like, that's why I called you, because I figured, I mean, I had it in my notes that I was going to call you to see if, like, you wanted to take away some of his books, because he had a bunch of copies of your books. There was one that you'd signed or something like that in it. But then, of course,
Yes.
this happened, and I thought, look at... I don't know what happened to my uncle. I don't know who took, like, obviously someone's broken in, taken these books, but I don't know what to do now.
You called the police, right?
Yeah, but like, what are police gonna do about a bunch of books? Like, nothing else was taken from the house. I just got, like, let me put it this way. They took the books out of the study, but they didn't take my brand new Super Nintendo.
What's a Super Nintendo?
Who wouldn't take that Super Nintendo? It's a rare commodity right now.
Yeah, I had to drive to New York to get it.
What is a Super Nintendo?
It's like a computer video game thing for the TV.
Yeah, you plug it into the TV and use the controller, it moves things.
It's great. It's got this amazing game called Mario World and this weird little robot thing. It's supposed to play with you, but I don't know. I think it's kind of weird.
I'm baffled. I don't know what to say. So they didn't take this Super Nintendo, but they did take. Sorry, we're referring to they taking. Was there forced entry? Broken windows?
I mean, you're the guy that writes the mystery books. I figure you would be able to, like, figure that out.
The cops didn't report anything about it, though.
I mean, I said a bunch of books had been taken out of my house. The police officer didn't even come by my house. They just talked with me on the phone.
That's typical of Port Perry police. It's. I mean,
what else are they doing? There's not really much that happens in our small town.
Mildred's cat was in a tree earlier this week. They got the whole fire team and police force out there, and by all of them, I mean all four of them, out there to save that cat. I guess books are beyond them, but so your uncle, who is presumed dead, but it's presumed he may have just left or been taken. Who would take him?
I mean, on paper, he's gone now. Like, the house is mine.
But no body, no evidence, no note, no...
No.
He just gone without a trace.
No, not at all. I mean, if you can figure out what happened to him, like if he went somewhere or went anywhere.
Any credit card statements? You know, they gotta the thing. I know it takes a while, but
no, he had the mortgage paid off and nothing. I mean, he had unpaid bills when he left, but that I've had to clear up. But
and I'm sorry. I'm just an author, Melanie, librarian. Why did you call me to let me know about the manuscript and the missing books, or are you asking me to what? What exactly?
yeah, what are we gonna do?
well, I mean, I figured, you know, you were maybe, you know, I should tell you that your books were gone and that you seemed like friends of his, and I don't know if you wanted to come by the house and try, like, I could spot you $250 if you get the books back.
I am a little low on cash right now. I bought a new fancy car phone.
Oh, Norman, look at you.
I know, it's quite... I can drive and talk at the same time. It's revolutionary. People will be doing this forever, I
Saving
imagine.
so much time.
I know, but that's not the point. I could use the money, and honestly, this sounds just like the start of my new manuscript for Paper Trail, a mystery involving a missing book that leads to mysteries unknown. I'm working on it. It's what I lent to Douglas some time ago to see what his thoughts were. Ironic, really, that.
So the start of your novel is like what happened to Douglas.
Not exactly. In the novel, the book goes missing, not the person. The person who is. It's, but you know, similarities happen. I mean, a lot of my books start with a missing item that needs to be found. It's part of a clever mystery. So I suppose, Melanie,
why don't we go look? Because at least if we can get some facts, maybe we can, I don't know. Knowledge is power, so let's go get some.
I mean, people. I just moved in, so people around town don't know me. Like, I figured that maybe people might know you, or Danny. If you get the like, as I said, you're welcome to come by the house and take a look around his study, and maybe there's something that'll let you know.
I suppose that's for the best. Melanie, are you available? I know that we just sat down here. I haven't even ordered more than my coffee. I was going to have the roast beef sandwich. It's quite good here. The Dijon mustard, excellent. But I
To be honest
suppose
with you, Norman, I ate like a 50-pack of Timbits before I came. I was really not planning on eating too much.
you had an entire 50-pack.
It was delicious. But, I mean, I can stay if you're hungry.
No, we should go. I
Wanna
would
get,
love
like,
to do this.
A BLT to go?
Don't even worry about me. The coffee's good enough to sustain me for now. Should we each drive over, or would you like to take my Toyota Corolla?
I want to see this car phone.
Right. I just bought my new car just last year. It's a 1990 Toyota Corolla, white, with a car phone. Very exciting.
Lucky. I just have, my car's a few years old. 88 Honda Civic. It's nothing special, nothing flashy.
But a Civic is a very reliable vehicle.
So,
I just
it'll last me for years.
I'll see you over there. If you head over, it's on Josephine Street, just around the corner, the other side of the cemetery.
Yes, I remember.
What number?
218 Josephine Street.
Okay. I take my notebook out and I start writing.
Yeah. So you hop in the Toyota and drive. It's a short little drive from the downtown. You could walk it almost as fast as you could drive it to where Josephine Street is. As you drive, you pass within view of the Prince Albert Pine Cemetery, because the houses on one side of Josephine Street all run up against the cemetery here. And that includes the property of the Kimball property. The house itself is nothing special. It is one of those split levels with red bricks and a white porch. There's no sidewalks along the street here. It's just a paved road. There are several birch trees, a few maples, and some pines that are lining the street, and a couple other cars slide by. A few kids on bikes ride by as you do so. Kids known to get up to trouble in the local cemetery. There's a wide lawn, and you can pull up the driveway and park just in front of the garage. And the house itself, you meet Tommy there, and he lets you into the house, which still has that faint smell of old person lingering in it. The home itself is one of those homes that was probably built in like the 1950s or 60s, kind of those very suburban style split level homes where you come into that main living room that has this awful shag carpet, just absolutely awful, the worst shade of brown gray you've ever seen. And as I said, there's still that little bit of that old person smell in the home lingering around. And even now for the 90s, the decor of the house is definitely aging. There is an old brick fireplace in the main living room, and then through these wooden paneled doors, you can get into the linoleum tiled kitchen with its creaky cupboards. and several of the bedrooms on the main level have been cleared out. Although off of the main level there is a den that had been used as a study and a library for by Douglas Kimball. You can tell that almost everything has been moved out of the house as you walk through the rooms. Norman, perhaps you visited Douglas in the past, and you remember the furnishings that used to be here, and almost all of them are gone. There are several boxes that are stacked up and labeled with things like donate, throw out, things like that. So it looks like Tommy has been going through everything to move into the house himself.
I feel embarrassed that I didn't even realize that my friend was gone. But it looks like, he's... What remains of him is even being put into boxes. And
Tommy says, so you feel free to take a look around if you want to. His studies, just like as I said, I haven't even finished taking things down. Most of the books are still there. I was starting to pack up a couple of them, but there's a lot to go through.
Do you mind if I take a look?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great.
And Normie, if you need a place to crash, you can stay here. I don't know if you live in town anymore or not, but
I live just a few streets over. I'm quite all right. I live in my parents' old house. Do you mind if I ask you a question, Tommy?
Yeah, sure.
You said that you had packed up several of these books. The box that went missing that had the manuscript, some library books, and some of his personal books, correct?
Yeah, I think I packed up maybe like 20 books or so. It was a bunch of the books that I saw that were marked from the library. I put them in there. The manuscript, maybe a couple others, and a few of the other books that I saw in there that I don't know. They just looked like worth donating.
It might be of interest to know where you left the box. Was it in the study? Was it in the living room when it went missing? Where was it that you set the box down?
He points to the desk in the study. The room itself has a one of those kind of like desks that maybe looks like it was made in the 70s. Right, it's wooden with that weird paneling on it. Nothing very valuable, but like it definitely it's got creaky drawers, like 2 creaky drawers on either side. There's kind of one of those green lamps on top of it. Several pens are about. There's like a writing pad and an old typewriter. There is a very comfy looking leather upholstered chair, and there is a standing lamp that would come over, such that you could imagine Douglas might have sat in his office chair, put his feet up on the desk, and turned on the standing lamp and read a book quite comfortably. The rest of the room is lined with books on all the shelves, aside from the window, which has those like long strip blinds. You know, the ones that go floor to ceiling and they kind of like tilt. Yeah. And then the collection of books that Douglas Kimball had is incredibly eclectic. There's a whole series of Encyclopedia Britannica. There's a whole bunch of old fantasy, science fiction, and pulp novels, but then there's stacks of newspapers, stacks of other books, textbooks, fiction, nonfiction, copies of everything from like the complete works of Aristotle and Sophocles to a copy of Das Kapital, and a few other books of varying dubious quality and rarity.
Is there any books that are taken, say, off the shelves and in a pile of like, I want to look and see like if there's any particular books he was like recently, I say recently, but like a year ago, like.
So you are a professional librarian. So give me a library use check.
Hmm. 45 and my skill is 70.
So with your librarian's eye, you can tell that several books have been removed from the shelves and pulled out of their usual place. Like you just have a sense, because you're used to going through the library stacks of where a book should be. There are empty parts in the shelves, and if Doug Tommy said that he picked out 20 books, but there's definitely more than 20 books that are missing. Like, if you just do a rough count, like, there's more than just that 20 that are missing.
As I'm looking at the bookshelf, out of the topics presented, using my skills as a writer, do I notice any books that seem like they are one of a kind, in a sense that maybe they don't belong with the other books? Maybe they're of a topic or a time period or a style that just seems out of place?
Many, I guess, give me a literature check.
All right. I get a 16. My literature score is 65, so I'm good.
You can see that Kimball was a very prolific reader of... There's a sizable section of children's fantasy stories. There's books here like Bridge to Terabithia and Alice in Wonderland. Books where children get lost in other worlds, which seems notably out of place compared to the rather adult literature, like the more like, it's the only kind of like young adults / children's fiction aside from like the science fiction stuff or the fantasy stuff. Like he's got a copy of Lord of the Rings in here somewhere probably, and a lot of like that really like obscure, like there's probably like some Henline and like some Frank Herbert and all that stuff in the mix. One of
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, having been good friends with Douglas, if I'm imagining that I had been here and that him and I had exchanged books, he's read all my stories, looking at the shelf, would I recognize possibly what sort, if there's a particular sort of book that's missing? Like, there's obviously some that have vanished. If I had glanced at his library from time to time and examined it looking for books to borrow, would I notice what's missing?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Are his books organized in any sense? By author, by category?
Give me a spot hidden check.
Oh, I rolled an 87, but over 55.
Okay. If there is, it's definitely not the Dewey Decimal System.
Darn it. Why doesn't everybody organize their home libraries like the one? Dewey Decimal is such a better system.
Melanie is examining the bookshelf. I'm going to go over to the desk and, because that's where the box of books was. So I'm going to look for any indication of some sort of clue, really, that something has gone missing from the desk, or maybe something has been left behind by the culprit who took the books. Anything out of the ordinary or unusual on the surface of the desk. Sure. I might even feel like under the desk.
All right, give me a spot hidden roll.
Oh dear.
And I'll give you advantage because you mentioned you're going to look under the desk.
So I roll 2 of the 10s and I take the highest?
And you take the lower.
Oh, right, lower.
It's inverted, yeah.
I get a 21 over 25.
Okay, so As you bring your thumb under the desk, there's a key taped underneath the desk.
I pull the key out and examine it.
Pull the key out. It's one of those metal keys with like the rounded handle. It just from a casual inspection, you can see that it matches the keyhole in. So you know how like the desk would have like the two drawers at the side, but then the middle drawer. It matches the middle drawer.
Tommy, permission to go rifling through your uncle's things?
He already gave you permission. He's actually back down. He's in the basement den playing Super Nintendo. You can
turned around to say that.
You can hear the sounds of Mario jumping.
Woohoo! Okay, very well. I suppose, and I'm going to put the key into it and click it open. Hopefully,
as it rolls out, you can see that the opening the middle desk, the middle drawer, it slides out, and there are several personal journals that are kept here.
I'm going to quickly. I mutter to myself. Norman's starts rifling through them, looking for the most current one, and he's saying, "This is just like the mysteries in the books that I read and write. And what a librarian and an author going into the desk to find the hidden clues of the mystery of the book." As I rifle through looking for the latest journal to read the most recent entries.
The last entry in the journal, turning to the last page, is dated in October a year ago, October 1990. And the entry cryptically says, "I have reached a decision and I'm going to join my new friends."
Melanie?
Yeah?
I think we have found our first clue.
Booyah! Yes! What did you find, Norman?
It looks like the last journal entry, dated about 1 year ago, was regarding Douglas joining his new friends. I don't know what that means. I'm going to rifle back a few pages, looking for earlier entries that might reference new friends.
Flipping back, it seems like Douglas did not often make entries in this journal. You get the sense immediately that this was a aspirational diary rather than a rigorously kept one. There is a note about he mentions in one spot that he likes to read by the graveyard. And earlier as well, he also mentions just found something, saw something, wasn't kids. They came from below.
Melanie, if I was writing a mystery, the graveyard, where Douglas liked to sit and read,
Great classic spot,
would be a great setting for something to happen.
especially at dusk.
At dusk, in the graveyard, on a foggy evening, Douglas went to the graveyard to read in the light of the setting sun. Therein, within the graveyard, he encountered some strange not kids. I don't know what that means. Perhaps adults, perhaps teenagers. We'll say teenagers. That came from down the street below him, since there's a nearby hill.
Mhm.
Perhaps. I'd rather believe that than to assume that Douglas is alluding to some more sinister idea of things coming from out of the ground, but
Do you think he's being poetic?
Douglas did read a lot, so I wouldn't put it past him to flavor his words as such, but what I'm trying to do here is, although I am an author of horror stories, we are dealing with reality. And so, as much as I would like to imagine, oh, zombies came out from the ground and snatched Douglas, that's ridiculous. And Douglas probably encountered some strange teenagers who maybe befriended him from down the hill.
This is the Night of the Living Dead, you know? Movies.
Oh, I did fancy that film, though. It was quite good. Zombies, very new thing. I mean, quite exciting.
The Dead Rising has been in literature for years, in fantasy and in the occult and everything.
Yes, my third book, The Case of Dr. Whittleby, was about that. You recall, right?
I do, yes. I mean, Whittleby was so... Remember all those books that I got you on, you know, like the graveyards and, you know, different pieces that fall into like rituals after that people die, you know?
Do you think somebody was doing... well, Douglas, again, according to this last entry, he might not be dead. He might just be hanging out with a bunch of teenagers. Yeah. For a year? Seems odd, but... I
mean, people go off and do crazy things. You know, we have car phones these days. Anyone can get a hold of you.
Right. When I do write this the version of this story, I'll make it much more exciting than just teenagers down the street. But perhaps it's in our best interest to follow this clue and perhaps head out to Douglas's reading spot and see if we find something.
Yeah, that could be useful. I mean, other than the missing books, do we think there's anything else here that could give us a clue?
It is worth maybe taking a last look around. I would like to check the doors and windows to see if there's any signs of somebody coming into the house.
Ooh, good idea. Yeah. If somebody stole something, why would they walk in the front door?
Right. I'm going to check the windows around the house.
Okay.
There's windows in that room, though, right?
Yes, there are windows into the study. Going over to the windows, they are the kind that you have to roll open with like the the shutter. Notably, there's no screen in the windows.
In any, or just in that room?
In that room, there's no screens. And judging on how easy it is, one of the windows doesn't quite close properly. Like, you know, like you kind of, again, the arm on when you unroll it, it unhooks from the latch of the window. So when you roll it back up, it doesn't close properly. And
is the window big enough for a person to fit through?
Absolutely. Easily. It would be like an adult could easily get through this window.
Is this on the main floor or the upper floor?
The house is a split level. So it is only one floor. This is the den in the house, so it's at ground level.
Interesting.
Yeah. Is there any broken pieces or scuffs on the windowsill?
No, there don't seem to be. From just looking around, there is a knocked over stack of books, but there's knocked over stacks of books everywhere in this room. The outside, there's no bushes, there's just grass below the windows here, and the windows look out to the graveyard.
The windows look out to the graveyard, the very place that Douglas was sitting at dusk 1 year ago when he was reading his book. Perhaps Douglas, living with the teenagers down the hill, returned to grab his favorite books.
Were they his favorites, though? Why would he grab just what was ever in the box? Maybe some of the ones on the shelf, maybe he took with them, but I couldn't see it being of importance for him, if he's considered dead, to come back and get his books.
I think what is of most importance, though, here is he took my manuscript, which means he enjoyed it.
When did you send him your manuscript?
It was about a year ago.
And you haven't been wondering where it is now?
Well, okay, listen, I had a second copy, so I wasn't too worried about it. He said he would get around to it, and again, I've been writing new ideas, new things down. I didn't realize a year had passed since I handed it to him. It was only recently that there was a mishap involving a little bit of a fire. Nothing that I needed to call the fire department for, but my study may have caught on fire. You see, falling asleep at your typewriter while smoking a pipe, not a good combination. The other copy of my manuscript, the only other copy, was destroyed in the process. So that's when I decided to look into whether or not Douglas had a copy. This was only a few nights ago. And that's when Tommy told us that he wanted to meet up with us. And so I thought I would meet up in person and ask about the manuscript. And here we are. So
Makes sense. Very logical.
Thank you.
All right. I think, you know what? Let's go check out the graveyard. We can always come back and see if there's any more clues. But you're right. There's something about this graveyard that doesn't feel right.
According to the journal, that's the spot he frequented it. I take one last. I'm actually going to open the window and look at the siding of the house, the floor beneath it, any signs of footprints or dirt on the side of the wall or anything of that sort.
Sure, give me either a track or spot hidden check.
For spot hidden, I get a 31 over my 25.
Looking out towards the graveyard, there is a wire mesh fence that is really low. Like, if you wanted to hop this fence, even if you were an older dude like Doug was, it would be pretty easy to hop the fence. Except for the fact that there is there's two posts of the wire fence that there isn't a fence between them. So it's not like someone cut that hole out. It's just that those two posts, there never was fencing completed there. So ostensibly residents of this line of houses, all of their backyards, some of their backyards are fenced off, some of them aren't, but all of them could walk back into the cemetery if they wanted to.
Is this particular backyard fenced off, or is it
No,
easy?
it actually isn't. His backyard isn't fenced. Like, his property isn't fenced at all. So you could just very easily stroll from the back porch over to the cemetery if you wanted to. And there is enough of a pathway that you could see that probably Douglas Kimball did do that.
Well, Melanie, in order to solve a mystery, one must be the mystery. That's a line from one of my novels, and I start climbing out the window.
I'm just gonna go at the front door.
Okay.
All right.
Prince Albert Pine Cemetery is a well-tended cemetery. It's been around for about 150 years. And there's lots of tall pines that separate the various areas of the cemetery. It's not a large cemetery by any stretch, and it's surrounded on all sides by residential area. As you come into the cemetery, You do see that there are some freshly laid flowers by some of the tombstones. It's during the day, so there are a few other visitors walking about, and there is a a machine on the far side of the cemetery where a gravedigger is using the crane machine to dig a new grave over there. There's also a few mausoleums that are throughout the rest of the cemetery as well.
The
Uh,
gravedigger is here.
Yeah, there's a gravedigger working right now. Yeah.
We should go ask him and see if there's anything weird or if he's seen Douglas around.
I mean, he works at the graveyard. Douglas reads in the graveyard. It makes sense that the staff of the graveyard would know Douglas,
Mm-hmm.
especially in a town this size. So, yes.
Let's do it. I walk over and wave at him to get his attention.
The man is in like one of those small sort of shovel crane. What is the proper term? I guess it's just like a caterpillar digging one of the grave sites. There's a few shovels strewn about as well. He's got like one of those orange vests on and a hard hat. And he's wearing a pair of aviator sunglasses. He's a rather portly man, but he's covered in dirt. He's got a goatee, but there's a fair amount of stubble coming in the rest. And he stops, parks the graveyard, parks the machine, and steps out of the excavator and says, "Hey, what's going on?"
I'm Melanie Murphy, local librarian and friend to local famous author Norman Spector. We were just wondering if you could answer a few questions about our friend that we haven't seen in a while. You might know him. He reads in the graveyard.
Friend, give me a charm check.
Ooh. Ooh, 12 to my 45.
Okay. Is that under your half? Is that under your 1/5 success? No, it's not. You need under 9. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Says, "Oh yeah, Melanie, you do that afternoon thing on Saturdays. I'm Jeff Daniels. I think my daughter, my daughter Jackie comes to your afternoon program, right?"
Oh yeah, Jackie. I know Jackie. She's such a smart little cricket.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you could always go up to Daniel up at the office if you need any records or anything for the library. Like the archives are just up there. What do you need?
Oh, well, we were just wondering. I don't know if you've seen our friend Douglas Kimball lives just over there. He used to read around the graveyard, at least or so we've heard. We just haven't seen him in a while, and we're wondering if maybe the last time you saw him.
Oh.
You know?
Uh.
It's been a while. He's been missing for about a year now.
Oh yeah, Dougie. Yeah, Doug.
Dougie,
Yeah. Oh. I haven't seen him in a long. He lives over in one of the houses, right? He does, right? Right?
18 Josephine, just straight over. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I haven't seen him he used to come like every day and read on the gravestone. There was a gravestone that he used to read on every day.
Specific gravestone?
Yeah. It was.
Can you show us which one?
Oh yeah, I can show you. It's. I think it's over. I think it's. Oh, let me think here. I gotta kind of remember. It's at this moment that one of you Norman, you kind of realize this. He smells a little bit like pot. the gravedigger, just a faint whiff of it. And so like he's kind of, you realize his eyes are kind of bloodshot a little bit. And so he says, yeah, I think it's this one over here. And he kind of leads you. No, it's this one over here. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it's this one.
He sat at the same grave every time he came here to read.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And you're positive it's this one?
Yeah, he leads you over to this tombstone that is one of the oldest ones in the cemetery. It has been worn super smooth by age, and so much so, in fact, that you can't even make out the name on it anymore. It's one of those really old gravestones. But the height of it is perfect to sit on like a stool.
I sit. Now, Melanie, let's say I'm sitting. I'm reading.
As you are now.
Yes. I look up from my vantage point and begin examining the surrounding area to see what it might be like to be Douglas sitting here reading. What I might spot. He says that he was here, he was reading, and he spotted the teenagers coming from below. I tried to look to see where below could be from my vantage point.
Cool. As you sit and ponder that, Melanie, was there something that you wanted to do?
I still want to kind of chat up Jeff and just see, Jeff, a year ago, he was writing some pretty weird things in his journal about not kids. Are there kids that come often through here, or non-kids that don't come often?
Kids. I mean,
you see anything strange around here around that time?
Melanie, give me a psychology check.
Ooh. Oh no, I rolled 87 over my 10.
Okay. He seems a little bit out of it. But he says, sorry, what was your question again?
Oh, just if anything weird has happened. I know it's a graveyard and maybe some weird people come through here, but it's something that stands out about a year ago.
No. I mean, the police, there were those missing girls a couple of years ago back, but but none of that.
Sir, I hate to question your personal business, but have you been smoking the wacky tobacco?
What?
You do know that it's highly illegal here in Canada.
Of course, in 1991, it is illegal in Canada. As a side note, it's because in the original module it's supposed to be alcohol, and it's prohibition in 1922. So I thought there were parallel there.
Now, I could report you to your boss unless you give your head a little shake and give us the information we need, because this is very important. There's a missing manuscript here.
Give me an intimidate roll.
Oh. I'm not very intimidating. I'm quite a gangly, awkward man.
You're referencing the illicit substance, so you can have advantage on the check.
Oh, let's hope for advantage. Well, it's going to be a 32 over my intimidate score of 15.
He's like...
Can you take a half?
And he says, go ahead. I buy it from him.
The whole graveyard has gone up in smoke, it seems.
Listen, I gotta get back to work. I showed you what you wanted. I don't need you. I tried to help you. I don't need you threatening me.
I meant no offense. Enjoy your devil's lettuce, sir.
He storms off.
Thanks, Jeff. I look forward to seeing you guys on Saturday.
And I
We're
had
trying
respect
out
for
the
that
new
man.
computer. It's going to be great. Norman, you can't
Yes.
go accusing people like that. I mean, it was a little bit obvious, but you know,
He smelt
each their
like
own.
marijuana cigarettes. And
Yeah.
he wasn't even sure if this was the right tombstone. You could see it all over his face. When a man smokes the pot, they get all confused. It's very dangerous. I've watched several documentaries about it. Extreme people you can die.
Don't knock it till you try it, okay?
I beg your pardon.
Just saying.
I will
I'll be
continue smoking my safe tobacco. Thank you very much.
so safe.
As you ponder looking back at Douglas's vantage point, give me a spot hidden roll.
It's going to be a 32 over my 25.
You look out, and the only thing that you can see from where you are is that directly opposite from the seating position, you are direct opposite one of the mausoleum doors that is on the other side of the path.
Is the door closed?
Yeah, it is a closed mausoleum door. Melanie, would you like to do anything?
I want to sit on the opposite side of the gravestone.
Okay. You're sitting back to back on the opposite side. If you want to, you can give me a track roll.
Oh wait, 0 0 is 0.
Yeah, that would be.
I rolled a 3 to my 10.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. As you sit down, you notice. You sit down on the other side of the tombstone, and there's really not enough room for one person, and so you sort of shove Norman off the tombstone, and he shoves you back, and you stumble down, only to see that there is a footprint in the ground here, several of them. It looks like the footprint of maybe a really big goat.
A goat.
Something with a hoof.
Who's bringing animals into the graveyard? Norman!
What?
This.
Look at what?
But there's
hooves!
There's a clear track of hooves. Like someone was leading an animal here and back. It must have been a large animal too. Like the spots are pretty big.
Melanie, you're talking about hooves. Were you after the wacky tobacco as well?
Grab him, like, get down here! And I, like, put his face to the hoof spot.
You can
Oh
see
hi,
them. Yeah. They
Look!
Melanie, hooves.
Hooves!
They lead around the tombstone and then follow a clear path that, as you follow it, it leads towards the mausoleum.
Melanie,
The hooves in the mausoleum. Why? Why would there be hooves going to... This is not a pet cemetery.
a
By
family
the-
goat.
By this time, it's about 4:30 p.m. and it's late October, so the light is starting to go down a little bit. But yeah, the mausoleum, The tracks lead up to it. The door of the mausoleum.
That's
Melanie.
strange.
If I was writing this story, I would have some sort of goat man appear from the cemetery from the depths below and take our missing person away, but
I would probably recommend you do a little bit more research on that, Norm, if that's the route you're going.
no, that's not the route I'm going. I'm just saying that if I was writing the story, but that's ridiculous.
You may be writing a horror fantasy novel, but it's a bit far.
It doesn't make sense, though, that... Would somebody be buried with their family goat?
But why would they be buried with a live goat?
Yes, indeed. And who would open the mausoleum door to let the goat out? Unless... Oh, you know, I was watching a documentary the other night on my television set. It just so happens that, you know those crop circles that appear in farmer fields? It turns out that it's a group of teenagers who go out with stakes and string, and they make elaborate designs overnight to fool people into thinking that aliens landed in their crops. Of course, when I write the book, I always make it aliens, but
It's obvious choice.
maybe the teenagers from down the hill who are behind this came here with hooves on their feet. I heard of people putting on big shoes to pretend to be Bigfoot once. So maybe it is a ruse, an elaborate ruse to try to confuse. Why? Why though?
Maybe this is what, I mean, if Douglas maybe saw something, or if somebody was leading some sort of animal around here, and he probably went and saw them too, just like we did. So we should go check out the mausoleum. Why not?
Found something, saw something, wasn't kids, came from below.
Kids are baby goats.
An adult goat came from the mausoleum. Do you think anybody would mind if we crack open this mausoleum? I believe that's against graveyard protocol. I don't actually know what graveyard protocol is, but I
And you
assumed
kind of pissed off the
I simply asked him a question about his tobacco use. Not my fault. He got so offended.
I'm just saying we can't get him to pop this thing open. Do we have to wait? Do we have to wait until night and pop it open ourselves?
I do have a flashlight in the glove box of my car.
Let's at least go look and see.
Okay. I approach the mausoleum door.
The mausoleum door is heavy, embossed door with a handle.
Melanie, do I try the hand?
Try it. Why not?
I'm going to try the handle.
Give me a strength check.
Uh-oh. Just raw strength, yeah?
Yep. Roll under your strength.
I got a 2.
You open the door.
Oh, I would have assumed that this took a lot more effort than that.
As you pull the door open, horrific miasma salts your nostrils. Both of you can roll your constitutions.
Uh-oh. Oh, gosh. 30.
47
Under my 60.
under my 50.
Okay.
Wow. Close.
Whew.
The smell is sulfurous, a combination of rot and manure. Inside the mausoleum, there is the caskets in their crevices, but several immediately in the door, several of the tiles, the stone tiles, have been broken and shattered. and there is a large hole in the floor, like that of a hand-dug burrow, about 2.5, 3 feet wide, that leads down into darkness. The smell is emanating from the hole.
I think the gravediggers haven't really been doing their jobs properly if they're just leaving holes like this around.
Melanie, I don't know what to make of this. This is right out of a book or one of those Twilight Zone episodes.
But that stuff doesn't happen for real. It's an explanation.
There is a hole in the ground in this mausoleum.
Smell.
There is a stinky hole in this mausoleum, which, Melanie,
Oversight by the management here. I'm just saying, whoever's paying for this.
If I could, I have reached a decision, and I'm going to join my new friends, was the final journal entry. Douglas sat on that very tombstone, reading at dusk, found something, saw something. Wasn't kids. They came from below. Melanie, we've got ourselves a supernatural mystery here.
Supernatural mystery. I mean, wasn't baby goats. Wasn't teenagers. Sounds like now. Kids. Could it be something that's smaller? And you said how big's the hole? 2 by 3?
It's large enough that a person could climb down there.
Now, do we go in the hole?
I mean, it's a fascinating mystery, but do I want to climb down a deathly stinky hole as the sun is setting?
Oh, I hold my book out in front of me, and I approach the hole, and I look down. Is it just dark?
Can I look at a flashlight?
I have a flashlight in my car.
Okay, you run back to your car and get the flashlight.
I'm holding the flashlight.
By the time you get the car, the grave, it's about 5 o'clock now, and you no longer hear the sound of the excavator and the gravedigger. They've gone home, and there's no one else in the cemetery. Sun's starting to get low.
I pop open the glove box, and inside is a revolver and a flashlight. And I grab the flashlight, and I kind of look down at the revolver. Melanie?
Yeah.
Do I bring the revolver?
Just in case, it might be really good to have some sort of protection, because you never know what kind of animal might be diseased or something down there.
I've never fired this thing. It has 6 bullets. I bought it after a mugging incident some years ago, but I've never shot it before.
And for historical accuracy, the Firearms Act didn't happen in Canada until it wasn't revised yet. It's going to be revised in 1992. So we checked this.
Norman, I'd rather have it than not. I trust you to know. You know, I don't think you're going to shoot it off at anyone. Just, if you have to take the shot, please.
Sure. I pocket the revolver, I grab the flashlight, and I head back to the mausoleum. Melanie?
Yeah?
The sun's going down.
Yeah, I'm bugging out a little bit at this, Norman. But we can't. What if something happened to Douglas? He went down the hole.
It's been a year. He's probably dead. My manuscript might be down there.
You think he'd take your manuscript down there? I don't know.
I have a plan.
Okay, tell me.
I approach the edge of the hole.
I'm behind you.
Douglas, Doug? I don't think he's here. I think that we should go home. I tried my plan. It didn't work. I called out his name.
Basic first aid, and that is not how this works. I teach it on Sundays at 3 o'clock.
Doug, are you down there for a year?
You call
think
down
this
the
is-
hole, and there's silence. But both of you can give me a listen check as you listen for a response.
It's 25 to my 40.
I got an 85 to my 50. I'm too busy muttering Doug's name.
With your librarian's ear, you're just about to, maybe there's nothing, but you hear... Is it the rustling in the grass? You hear a scratch, and the faint echo of perhaps a mip.
Norman, shh.
Doug! What?
Shh. You're using my librarian. Shh. Listen.
Okay, you can make another listen check, but I need a hard DC from you, Jill. Melanie.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh no, I got a 70.
You listen for another while, but you don't hear the sound again.
I heard it. I swear I heard it.
You heard
I
what?
I heard it whistling and a whimper.
Melanie, the graveyard is full of squirrels.
The best way to describe the sound you heard was like a meep. It's
Like a meep. Like
Did
a
it-
like
Like a squirrel sound, yes?
like gremlins.
Like squirrels, gremlins.
Yeah. Meep, you know. It wasn't a squirrel. I know it wasn't a squirrel. Like it echoed from down there. I know it.
From down
heard it.
there? I just called Doug's name. There was no answer. There's nothing down there. Just stinky. Okay, well then what? What do we do?
We explore the meep.
Okay, listen. Whenever I write one of these stories, the hero, which we are not heroes,
No.
always investigates the meep in the hole, in the mausoleum, at night, in the graveyard, when a person went missing a year ago. That's what the heroes do, but then they encounter a horrible monster. They maybe die. Sometimes they do. Depends what mood I'm in when I'm writing it.
Well, can you get in the mind of the universal author and tell them not to kill us? And we can be the heroes, I guess, but we can also not.
Melanie, are you telling me we have to go into the stinky hole?
Listen, before you know what? Perfect. You have a car phone. Can I at least call my dad and let him know I'm in the graveyard tonight so I don't get...
Let somebody know where we are. Maybe tell him, no, wait, we shouldn't
He's
let the
gonna
police
worry
know
that
that
I'm
we...
not home for dinner.
We can't call the police at this point. Okay, yes, go use my car phone.
I ran to the car phone.
Okay.
I stay in the mausoleum like an idiot.
Call my house because I have that number memorized.
All right.
I have all my numbers memorized.
Yeah. You call your home and report that you will not be home for dinner.
Dad, I'm not coming home for dinner. I'm hanging out with my friend Norm. No big deal. But we're gonna do some cool stuff like in a novel. Okay?
Have fun, honey.
Bye. Talk to you later. Love you. Bye. No. My dad knows where we are. He's fine with it.
And now you want us to go into the hole.
Yeah, we gotta explore. We gotta be the heroes in the novel, and we gotta find Douglas, even if he's done.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's just a hole. There's no such thing as monsters. It's just a hole.
And I mean, think about what the hero in your first novel would do.
Ah, my first novel, The Space Between the Stars. Excellent film. In that one, a creature from beyond the stars visits Earth and starts mutating people into horrible... Anyway, you remember it quite well. It was a great novel.
That's why I reached out to you to help you with your second.
Well,
Are
hopefully-
the two of you going to climb into the hole?
How far down does it go?
The hole starts by going 6 feet down, and then it turns and continues like a tunnel under the earth. You would have to proceed on your hands and knees through the mud, with the worms and insects crawling beneath you.
I hop down into the hole.
Okay, you are in the hole.
Fine.
If you, by hopping down feet first, you would be proceeding very awkwardly. The hole is such that it is too tight to turn around inside.
Could I drop in feet first and then proceed on hands and knees, or would I need to climb into the hole?
Head first, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Melanie,
you could try with your dexterity to do it that way. Yeah.
I'm going to try to drop down and then push myself head first.
Okay. Give me a dexterity check.
Now here's some good rolls, but terrible rolls. I get an 88 versus my 70.
You... you... This is not going to work. You try to turn yourself around. You try to turn yourself around, get stuck. Melanie has to help you out, unstuck yourself. You could try climbing. Try to turn yourself around in the hole. It's too tight.
I place my journal and my pipe down. I take my revolver and my flashlight, and I climb into the hole head first.
Do you want me to put your stuff in my purse? It can hold
Yes,
a lot.
please. Thank you.
Okay. And Melanie, what do you do?
I take my pepper spray out of my purse and Norm, here's what I'm thinking. I could crawl in, but face back. I'm really good at, I can crawl backwards-ish. And so that way, if something comes from behind us, I could spray it in the face.
Why would something come from behind? But you think something's going to come from behind? Why am I going into the wormhole? Okay, sure, Melanie, sure. This is ridiculous.
So that way you have the flashlight and you can shoot the thing in front if something happens, and I can pepper spray it from behind. I don't know.
The thing in front, I don't know what that means.
I crawl in so that way I'm like,
All
so
right.
like our feet are kind of against each other, and I'm like crawling backwards.
My manuscript.
Okay. You climb down into the holes. After you climb for about 20 feet, the passage veers off into a second passage, 2 different directions that you could go. Give me a navigate check, because the two of you are working together on this, so the two of you can roll together.
Well, 23 to my 10.
94 to my 10.
All right. Each of you can roll me a d3.
We'll do half of a d6.
Yeah.
Like 5 on a d6.
So that's 3.
I got a 3, which is a 2.
Okay. After 5 hours wandering through, after you turn, you make your way back. You climb for an hour, for like half an hour, and then turn again. And it takes you 5 hours of panic to find your way back out again as you climb through these horrific holes. The flashlight battery, as you clamber out back into the mausoleum, dies.
Melanie, I'm covered in mud.
Yep, me too.
I smell. It's late.
As you exit the mausoleum, there is a figure sitting on the tombstone the overcast night, just a little bit of moonlight comes through. There is a glint on the eyes of the figure, perhaps glasses. The figure is sitting on the tombstone, holding a book.
I pull out my revolver.
I hear pepper spray.
Who's there?
Okay. As you call out, the figure looks up towards you and then looks back down to the book.
I'm armed. You should answer me.
Me too. I'm behind you.
Douglas?
The figure stops and it says in a strange voice that is somewhat familiar, "Hello."
Do I recognize does it sound like Douglas but different? But like I can associate it with.
It sounds familiar, but wrong somehow. The voice is both higher and lower pitched than usual. Something is wrong with his vocal cords.
Douglas, is that you, old friend? It's Norman.
Old Norman. He sounds weird.
I know. Maybe he's been in those holes for a year. Maybe he's unwell. He could be sickly.
In the darkness, it's hard to see the figure. It says, "Norman, come closer."
Is there any light in the graveyard?
Just the fragments of moonlight and a small cast of the street. The streets don't have street lights. It's such a rural area.
I inch closer, not like close enough that I'm in grabbing range, but I'm just inching closer to try to make out any sort of facial features or anything. Douglas, you sound unwell.
The figure is bizarre looking. A man wearing a buttoned down suit that is covered in mud and dirt. He is holding a book in his hands. The cover is scratched, worn off, and a pair of glasses. But the face is torn and ragged, the ears end in points, and the feet of the figure are hooves. You can both give me a sanity check.
Ooh. 45 to my 60.
68 to my 50.
Well, Norman, you lose 3 points of sanity as you scream out at the recognition of the monstrous figure of Douglas Kimball. And that's where we're going to take our break. And we are back from our break. As our investigators gasp in horror at the sight of the creature that Douglas Kimball has become, with his strange warped features. You see his nose has become a bulbous thing. He has sharp protruding canines, pointed ears, and eyes that glimmer from in shades of yellow to orange. He is wearing clothing that you might have remembered him wearing at some time. Trousers, a vest, a tie, a button-up shirt, and still wearing his old glasses, though his hair has fallen out and his skin has become a blue-gray green color, sickly with lesions and patches across it. His feet, though, are not shoes, but cloven hooves. The words hello echo. He waits for you to stop screaming. He says, "It's not necessary. I'm not going to hurt you."
You. More?
No, it's been a while since anyone's called me Douglas. How long has it been?
Are you?
A year?
A year. It's only been a year. Melanie. The books from the library.
Yeah, you have a lot of late fees.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Take whatever books you want from my collection to replace them. I'm afraid they're gone now.
What do you mean they're gone?
I've taken them with me to the other side.
Other side of what?
It's hard to explain.
Douglas. Where have you been the last year? Were you in the hole in the ground in the mausoleum?
If you crawl through the dark to the twilight, there's a wonderful place there. My life's wonderful with the others like me. There's no money. There's no need to dress for dinner. I don't have to meet people except for dinner. I can read all day and all night. I just wanted to come and get a few more books. One more time.
The box from your house.
I guess my nephew must have left those for me. Kind of him.
Douglas.
He was gonna donate them to the library.
Did you enjoy my manuscript?
I did. It's quite good. You should publish it.
I will. Thank you, Douglas.
We need it back.
Oh, I need the copy back, Douglas.
The only one.
Mine was lost in a fire. A horrible accident. No idea how it happened.
It's on the other side.
I'll wait here. You go get it back. I'll let Tommy know that you've gone to the twilight in the hole in the ground, and we'll just be on our way. Does that sound good?
No can do. It's closing soon. Won't be able to make another trip now. This is my last chance to get some reading material.
But my manuscript. Douglas, you mentioned in your journal that you were going to join your new friends. Who are your new friends?
Others, like me, that wandered into the twilight. We go together and read and live and eat and be forever.
Douglas, people don't just wander into a hole in a mausoleum. Who made the hole? Who got these? What twilight?
What goes meep?
That might have been me. If you want to, you could come with me, read and see and be and leave this world. There's much to see and experience. Maybe you could write a book about it, Douglas. You could write a book about it, Norman.
But you said it's closing. How often does it open?
I don't know. It's felt like I've been down there forever. I just took the chance to come back now.
You know, it's a tempting offer. Sounds like your friends are really nice. You have little tea parties and dinners and really cute. But I would really miss this world if I came with you. And Norman, you can't. You go. How would you publish your book if you went? You wouldn't. So even if you wrote one, no one would read it, except for these guys.
Douglas, you're my oldest friend. What made you choose to leave?
I was getting old. Wanted to go somewhere where no one would bother me. Where I could just read and enjoy. Do you want to do me a favor, Melanie?
Sure.
If you go down to my house and pick a couple books for me to take back. You always had a good taste.
Thank you. I do make good recommendations. Well, I mean, yeah, but I'm not leaving Norm here. I don't mind getting me some books, but
Melanie, I'll be okay.
no, I'm not leaving you here with him.
I want to ask Douglas some more questions.
Okay, what did you want to know, Norman?
You went by choice. Nobody forced you.
I was here reading, and one of my new friends crept out from the door and struck up an odd friendship. And then I decided to go with them last year.
So, they're not hurting anybody.
They haven't hurt me.
They just go to the twilight and occasionally come out and strike up conversations with people on this side to see if they want to join. I'm understanding this correctly. Nobody's been attacked. Nobody's been hurt. Is this correct?
Not everything's always safe on the other side. But if you wanted to go, you'd be with me, and you'd be safe.
Melanie, I can't really make sense of what's happening here exactly, but it seems like Douglas has made up his own choice.
I mean, if he wants to go, that's fine, but are you thinking about going?
I don't know yet.
I mean, great fuel for a novel. I mean, don't get me wrong. But what if you get stuck?
But Douglas just said that it felt like he was there forever, yet he's back here a year later.
Yeah, but here, I missed this old spot. I wanted to see it, but I I know that I can't stay here anymore. Something's happened to me. I'm not quite who I was before.
Did it happen when you entered this twilight? Or was it a gradual process?
Can't say. In fact, I didn't even realize it had happened till now.
Did you notice that you have hooves for feet?
You have hooves, Douglas. Hooves.
It seems pretty normal to me now.
Who are these friends you spoke of? In your journal, you said something about not kids?
Thought that they might have just been kids pulling a prank on me. But
Yes.
no, they're not. It's wonderful, Norman, if you could see it. But I still like to read. Books are their own trade down there. So, Melanie, if you could get me a few more books, I'd greatly appreciate it.
I can get you books, but Norm, are you going to be okay?
I'll be okay.
Don't go without me, okay?
Won't go anywhere, Melanie.
Okay, I'm gonna go get him like a really good version, one of the encyclopedias. No, actually, we'll keep that for a set for the library. I know which ones to get.
All right. As you head back to the house to grab some more books to give him, give me a library use check.
Okay. 21 to 70. Yes.
You grab a box, fill it up with a wonderful care package of reading material. Of about 24 books, paperbacks, hardbacks, mysteries, all sorts of things thrown in there, and a couple nonfiction for good measure, and bring it back.
Curation was my talent in school. That's what I'm thinking.
When Melanie comes back from the house, Norman, what have you been doing for the past couple minutes while she's been gone?
Sitting with Douglas and talking about literature as we always used to.
Alrighty, give me a sanity check.
38 over 47.
It's unsettling, but you manage to keep it together while you talk to him until Melanie returns with the books.
In that time, I ask Douglas a lot of questions, hopefully gathering details for my next novel.
The things that he tells you of climbing through that endless tunnel, of seeing the impossible sights of the world of Twilight, of wandering with the other people, the other changed ones, through endless times and strange spaces. You asking him these questions, roll a d6.
I get a 6.
You lose 6 points of sanity.
Mm-hmm.
And you gain 6 points to the Cthulhu Mythos skill.
Ooh.
When Melanie returns, you are slightly catatonic and unresponsive.
Oh, Normie. Norm.
He'll be fine.
No.
Just let him... He asked me where I'd been. It was like that for me when I asked my new friends. He'll be okay.
And I don't slap him across the face, but I kind of whack him a few times. What?
He's sticky. And he smells.
What does he smell like?
like the smell from the hole.
Norm! You need a shower!
Can I take the books?
Take the books! Go! Oh! You make my friends smell weird!
Oh no, I thought you slapped Douglas. No,
Oh, no,
Douglas
sorry.
is the one that's sticky and smells. Norm is fine.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I tried
Oh.
to, like, slap Norm a few times to,
Oh
like, wake
yeah,
him up.
he's not responsive right now.
Oh, my gosh. Take your book. Take the books. You should just be a friend. I thought we were friends. Why would you do your friend?
He asked questions. He wanted to know. He listened. Maybe it's better that you didn't ask, Melanie.
Yeah, clearly, if I don't want to end up first thing this.
So long, Melanie. Thanks for all the books. And he heads back into the mausoleum and pulls the stone slab that was pushed away as he climbs back in. The two of you both both do have some interesting knowledge, and Melanie, you gain 3 points to the Cthulhu Mythos skill. But both of you will face some strange nightmares for the time to come, I think. Melanie, you're able to lead Norman back to the house. And he comes to a little bit later. But how do you end things off from there?
No. You've come back to the real world. This is a snap. Why would you... What did he do to you?
Melanie, everything I've written about, the stories that I tell, they're not fiction anymore.
Not fiction. Of course they are. You wrote about imaginary worlds and heroes.
Melanie, there are places beyond our comprehension. I think I've figured out a title for my next book. It will be called The Twilight Book Club. A great story of an other world where people are drawn to it. Books are currency. Reading, knowledge is power. And the things that go on there are only comprehensible if you are able to break your mind apart into little pieces and try to piece it back together, Melanie. I'm going to write the story of what we just encountered here. And I will leave a copy on that grave for Douglas.
If you write about it, then won't people come and look and find? You can't let anyone else end up like that.
Melanie, to most people, it's just going to be a fictional story. Nobody goes poking around in graveyards at night unless they're insane like us. To most, it will be a story, but to you and I, we will know.
I'm not insane. I understand the difference between what's real and what's not.
Then what did we see tonight, Melanie? You explain that to anybody other than you and I, and they'll call you insane and they'll lock you up. So the best that we can do to share this information is to write it.
maybe I just won't tell anyone. Maybe I'll
I-
just keep it to myself, and no one ever needs to know about the strange things we've seen tonight.
You just wait. The Twilight Book Club, it's going to be a hit.
It's probably the first novel of yours I won't read.
So be it. Some stories need to be told.
Maybe I'll see you around the library sometime.
Good night, Melanie.
I can always slowly.
And that's where we're gonna end it, I think, on that note. As the two of you part ways over what disagreeing over how to make sense of what you saw on this night. That was Paper Chase.
We solved it! Woo!
Interesting. Really interesting. I mean, in a very Lovecraftian fashion, for some reason in my head, I was imagining Call of Cthulhu, like the story, but not all of his stories are Call of Cthulhu. You don't always face a giant monster at the end of his stories. In most of his stories, there's just it's kind of left with like a, did what just happen actually happen?
Mm.
And there's often a questioning. So I actually, I was expecting like a big fight with a huge, terrible monster at some point, but what I got was more standard Lovecraft in the sense that we never had to fight anything. We just had to solve the mystery and make sense of what we could.
It was a battle of the minds.
I was tempted to go into the hole, but I like to imagine that Norman.
I mean,
For
we did go
years.
into the hole, but then we came out.
We got lost. I imagine, though, that Norman and Melanie, if they remain friends for any reason, every year I know that Norman would probably go back and leave some books and his new manuscript on the grave and just leave it there, hoping. And if they go missing, he hopes that Douglas came and got them. And maybe when Norman's an old man, he goes and sits on that gravestone again and waits for Douglas so that he can go venturing into the twilight with him.
Okay. What would Melanie say about it in the future? How would Melanie talk about this in years to come?
Melanie would, settle down, have a family, have some grandkids, tell them all about the amazing stories of people she met in the library. And when she wanted to freak her grandchildren out because they're being bad, she would tell them the story of Douglas and how if they go wandering at night in the graveyard, kind of creating this kind of myth around the graveyard, that he'd come and take them to the other side. So yeah, as much as she is like, no, I don't want to talk about it, she kind of turns it into this like local legend.
Wild.
Monty, how does my novel, The Twilight Book Club, do?
I think we'll have to leave that a mystery for another time. But I'm interested to come back to that one because I like that.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's a great name for a book.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
I it's going to be my next best novel.
Well, I think, having wrapped up the adventure, I think that it would be cool to just feel like, what were your impressions of Call of Cthulhu as a system? How did it feel different from some of the other games that we played? And certainly, how did you feel playing it?
I think initially when I was creating the character sheet, I was not intimidated, but I was like, oh, there's a lot of numbers, coming into it. It can be a bit tricky to like figure out what numbers go where, but like the idea behind having them in this like story driven kind of play adventure tabletop game, I find that it's just opens up a world of like possibilities where you're not limited to just a few things thinking. It just like opens up your mind, especially in this modern setting, to be able to do what you would decide without limitations.
Yeah, I actually think that this system, having ran D&D and Monster of the Week as my two primary places of play, Call of Cthulhu is this odd middle ground between the two of them, and I actually love that. It's much more narrative than D&D, which is something I love about Monster of the Week. Is Monster of the Week is like all narrative, all improv, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas D&D is much more structured and rules and not that I don't improv, but you know what I mean. Whereas Call of Cthulhu, now I haven't sat in the DM chair for this, but from this perspective, it felt very narratively driven, and I did like that it relied more on just like in D&D, you're always wondering when the next combat encounter is going to be. In this, you don't even need a combat encounter. You might never need a combat encounter, because if you do,
to have a combat.
Yeah.
The idea, like even when we saw Douglas, and I'm like, I think I can approach him, but I'm gonna pull my gun out, and like I was ready to flee. Like if he even stepped towards me or stood up, I was just gonna run away.
Yeah.
So really interesting that I was edge of my seat for that entire interaction. I was also wondering, like, when I was like, who are your friends? I was ready for you to be like, and then from behind you, from the mausoleum. Like, I was just, even though all we did was talk to an old friend, I was scared of anything happening. Now, I don't know if the audience felt that. I hope they did, but I can tell you that as a player with only 10 hit points and knowing that one gunshot could kill me, or if somebody hits me hard enough, I could just die. I was nervous about the whole interaction with Douglas.
Yeah, I was really curious about how the feeling of like the mystery and this fear was manifesting for you two, because as the keeper, right, as the game master, like I know what's going on, and like I can try to be more creepy with my descriptions and everything like that, but it's hard to like I was wondering like are they feeling scared? Are they not? Like is where is this going, right?
It's one of those, like, when you watch a horror movie and it's like things are happening and it's like the slow and you're just kind of like covering your eyes but watching. It was kind of that feeling. It was just like, I don't want to look away, but also don't stop.
Yeah.
Please. Kind of like that tension, there's a good tension around it when you're getting into those kind of spots. And I found it really good to like lead up to it. Like it was enough of a mystery and kind of a puzzle where you're kind of trying to think of things and look at things, but at the same time it leads to this like this climactic like tension that you don't know which way it's gonna go.
I think, like, again, comparing it to D&D, in D&D most characters would have no problem jumping in a smelly hole in the ground,
right?
But even I knew that I had to go in there, but I didn't want to. Like knowing that I'm a regular person, again, 10 hit points. I don't have a sword. I don't have a shield. I don't have magic powers. I have a pistol that I've never fired before, a flashlight with batteries, and I'm crawling through a tunnel. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen. Convincing me to go in the hole was also like, I was scared.
I had to try to convince myself for a reason why I would dive into a hole in a mausoleum. I was like, would I really do this in real life? No. I'd walk away and be like, bye, Douglas, peace.
That is the one thing. I do have to break, like, as much as I want to play this like a real character, I also know that it's not exciting if Melanie
Mm.
and Norman are like, wow, a hole in a mausoleum, screw that. And then we go home and call the police and we're like, hey, we found a hole in a mausoleum. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, all right, Douglas missing, too bad.
Yeah.
Smells like a dead body down
So
there.
so I like I have some thoughts like as a game master having just run the scenario as written, and one of the first things that I'll say is that having now run like this on a stream, I felt my gumshoe influence and my influence of like other systems that I've played that have a more investigative bent coming back into this, and I'm like, oh, the reason why those systems do it that way is they're reacting to Call of Cthulhu, because even in this adventure, there's a lot of roll to find the clue, and like as an experienced game master that's been running like games of a variety of situations, I can tell you that roll to find the clue is not what we're gonna do. Like it's like, oh, I'm not doing that. Like even though the adventures like that, and there's I would think on this a few times, but like as a starter adventure for a solo player, I think it's excellent. Although there's like just a few things that the adventure does that I was kind of like, really, but it was well laid out. It was just like, I think that for there's definitely a possibility in this adventure to fail all the rolls and not be able to solve anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're like coming to it with an experience, just because of the way that it presents it, you guys went down a pathway that doesn't really where that really wasn't much of a concern, but I definitely felt like I had to like use some of the principles that I know from like running gumshoe based investigation stuff and like other stuff to just grease the wheels a little bit. But also, but I love like the feeling of it, and actually like honestly, the thing about this that I would say is not that like it has ability scores and skills, but I really liked not having to worry about setting a DC and just saying, yeah, just roll under your skill, right? Or roll
Yeah.
under half your skill. Like I thought I was gonna hate that, and I really like just doing that because it's less thinking.
Well, I find it either like you get it or you don't. There's no like, maybe there is kind of on your side like a spectrum of like, do you succeed or not? Like it's pretty clear
Yeah.
on that, you know?
Yeah. Right. It's really interesting in that respect. Also, yeah, the other thing that I just really liked is it reminded me of how convenient it is to run a game set in the modern day, because there's just so much that you don't have to worry about the setting. Like you just know it. And I actually think that like for us running it set in 1991 in Ontario was to the strength of the whole thing, instead like it moving it from 1922 to 1991, I think, because there was a thing that I remember reading where, and it makes me wonder, where when Lovecraft was writing in the 1920s, he wrote all of his stories to be set in the 1920s. And so it always puzzled me that the takeaway is Call of Cthulhu is supposed to be set in 1922, or that at least is how it's presented. Like, I actually think that it works best if you run it in your current day and age, right? Like, or close to that. And like, I think I would have a lot of fun running it in 2022, because I think then at least if you set it in 2022, then you get to mess with people's phones. Right. And that's like instant horror when the phones break or there's no signal. Like that's kind of one of those things that I think would be
Although
a lot of fun.
I do like it how we had it in like 91. Like we experienced the 90s and in different times in our lives. But we kind of knew about it. We knew kind of the limitations, but it was still kind of modern. I think it was fun having some throwbacks in kind of that.
I
piece.
think, yeah, it is fun that we, like, I could see playing with technology to also be fun, but I like
Yeah.
the fact that we based it modern enough that we know it,
Yeah.
but old enough that, like, we don't have cell phones. We have a computer at the library.
Yeah.
Um, so there are elements that, like, I find that things are scarier when you don't have direct access to all information and all
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, when I was trying to think of my character and I was like, why would I go on this mystery? And I was like, maybe he has a copy of my manuscript. And I was like, well, my manuscript would be saved somewhere. And I was like, or it wouldn't be because it's 1991 and I typed it on a typewriter.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's such a fun element of it, right? So yeah, overall I really enjoyed this. I feel for myself I would want like we kind of took this very open-ended, and I do wonder there's a couple different variants of Call of Cthulhu, like Pulp Cthulhu and Delta Green, where there's a little bit more of a push to make characters that are actual like investigators, police officers, professional detectives, like secret agents and stuff like that. I feel like if I was going to do a campaign, I would do that.
Yeah.
Right?
I know that we mentioned this
Yeah.
off camera, but one of the ideas that was floating around in my head that I would totally do with this group right here is Jill and I totally riff on Mulder and Scully.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be fun to do like a 90s. Yeah, cuz it definitely there's a lot of cool fun stuff to do with that. And honestly, like the system is just super lightweight. Like I it actually feels weird to even compare it to D&D or anything like that, because yes, it has D&D ability scores and it has ability scores and skills,
Yeah.
but that's but like it's not like it has like any, like the fact that you don't have a character class, I think
Yeah.
is a huge change, and the fact that there just isn't a complex rules for combat just totally changes the tone of the game.
I do like though that your job can influence your skills
Yeah.
though. I think that's a really neat aspect.
I also I don't know what it is because this is counterintuitive to why people play role-playing games in most cases, but I love playing a regular scared human.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoy,
Yeah.
I don't know, like when I was designing my author, I wanted him to be like in over his head, scared of things that are going on, not comprehending. Like, I want to play into those. For me, that's fun. That's so fun to like
Yeah.
go crazy in a Cthulhu mythos world.
Mhm.
Like, I actually, part of me was like, if there is a big monster or something, like Norman can die in the final act. Like, I'm so here for it. I just like, I don't know, dying in a Lovecraft novel. Thank you. So like I'm just here to be a part of it, and I would revisit these characters again, or I would do something else in
Yeah.
the Cthulhu
Yeah.
world.
I would say for those that watch this, follow this, I think we would love to play more COC on the channel in general, and so I would love to hear from those that watched and enjoyed this, what you liked it, or should we keep doing more Monster of the Week, right, in terms of that, because I wondered, like, the two of you have done Monster of the Week for streams when I've not been around. How did it feel different from Monster of the Week? Because I wonder if the comparison there is closer than with.
Now, the hard part is, I will say, and I mean no offense at all by this. It's more to do with the fact that tonight you had myself and Jill.
Yeah.
When I do Monster of the Week, I have Jill, Joe, and Mitch.
Right.
Joe and Mitch are both comedians.
Yeah.
Our Monster of the Week stuff goes off the rails so fast. So it is a horror comedy by all accounts.
Yeah.
There are slapstick jokes happening left, right, and center. Tonight we had jokes, but I did find that it was a little more like, Jill, when you and I are together, I feel like it's humorous, but it's It's a little drier in its comedy and a little more focused. So, um, not that that's a bad difference. In terms of mechanics, though, Jill, what do you think, having played both?
Yeah, I feel like both are story driven, and although they're both in this kind of fantasy area, this felt more real, in the real world. Whereas Monster of the Week, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's the way we drove the story, but it just went off, like especially when you're like luck points and the paranormal, like it feeds into it really quickly, at least in our stories. Whereas this, it was like we're normal people until it's not normal. It took
You,
like a right off a cliff, you
you know,
know?
I will say that Monster of the Week in its character classes definitely has more tropey bits to it. Like Joe's character had the bag where anything he wanted, he rolled a die to see if he had it.
Yeah.
And of course, Joe being Joe, it's like, I have a skateboard and a fire extinguisher, and he uses it as like a thruster to push himself around. And it's just like, what are we even doing here?
But I feel like that wouldn't fit into
Yeah,
this,
No.
you know?
yeah.
No.
Like,
He- we're strictly reality in the, well, other than Cthulhu mythos stuff, but like, we don't have a bag of tricks. We don't have superpowers. We might gain some, but it's more creepy and weird in its
yeah, it
powers.
really is almost like when I compare like horror movies, like ones that are like oh my gosh, like I'm scared, but I'm watching it. And of course it couldn't be real, but also it feels real. Like you go to sleep being like, please, monster under the bed, don't eat my feet. Versus Monster of the Week is like, I don't know if you watch Cabin in the Woods, where it's just like
Yeah, I mean,
the things.
the biggest inspiration for Monster of the Week is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And if you've watched Buffy,
Yeah.
it's pretty tropey, and it's that on purpose, and the characters are defined. Like in Monster of the Week, you get somebody who can be the vampire slayer.
Yeah.
Whereas in a Lovecraft novel, you get regular everyday detective who's like, oh my God, a monster. Should I kill myself because this is ridiculous?
Yeah.
So like Lovecraft has that like much more grounded realism. And so that I think is the difference where both are similar. I will say there are similarities there, but Monster of the Week has the freedom of tropes where Call of Cthulhu is much more grounded.
It does feel grounded, yeah, in that kind of realism.
One thing I do think that I do wonder with COC as a game master is I like that there's a lot of adventures. There's a lot of scenarios that look really, really good. And definitely for a mystery. When you compare D&D, you can sit down, make a dungeon, fill it with monsters, and you're guaranteed to have a decent time.
Mm-hmm.
That's easy to do. Like as a skill, that's not challenging. Making a mystery's a lot harder than that.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you're making something from scratch, like when you're doing your own homebrew, I think that because I know for myself when I'm running D&D, I can grab a location, I can grab a map, I can grab some monsters, and I know that I can just throw something together very, very easily. I don't think that I could do that with Call of Cthulhu.
Well, and the other thing I was just thinking about as well is like in the typical life cycle of a story, D&D is like action and a bit of role. Like there's so many kind of ups and downs that you go through in say a campaign, whereas this felt very like working up to the climax, of a story. So in that kind of sense, it is a different like build up to what the ultimate action is compared to D&D.
I mean, I've done a lot of mysteries even in our other campaigns, but mysteries definitely are a little bit more work. And when you can't fall back on a combat encounter taking up 45 minutes of the game session, it definitely feels like a different. So I'd be very I'm going to, in the midst of all the other writing that I'm going to do, I want to try writing my own scenario and see how that process feels to write and run my own scenario. So I think if we I'd like to play some more of the adventures, but maybe see what we come up with next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, if Joe is ever in need of a day again, I'm happy to do a
Yeah.
Call of
Yeah.
Cthulhu game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that I have it down, like after playing it the first time, definitely lean
Yeah.
into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think with that, we will wrap up for the evening. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. And thank all of you for joining us as we play something very different from the usual. So for those wondering again, this was tonight we ran the adventure Paper Chase, which is from the Call of Cthulhu 7th edition starter set. It's written by John Sullivan and was revised by Mike Mason. And the also, as a fun thing, the frame artwork that you see behind me was generated using Midjourney, using the prompts Dreamland, Lovecraft, Horror, Purple. So that's where you see all the assets that you are seeing around us this evening. Kelly, what do we normally do for these streams?
Usually, you can find us on Tuesday evenings playing Fate of Drakenheim, our D&D campaign, which features us three and our good friend Joe. We stream that live on Tuesday evenings from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time here at twitch.tv/dungeon_dudes. You can also find all of the previous episodes of all 3 seasons of our campaign on our YouTube channel, and you can check us out as a audio-only podcast under Dungeons of Drakenheim. So you can check all of that out wherever you'd like.
We got an amazing Patreon community that helps support our work. So if you enjoy what we do, please check us out at Patreon. You can find that in the links below, and hop onto our Patreon Discord server where you can chat, hang out with us, and talk about role-playing games, D&D, and all that great nerdy stuff. We post new videos every other Tuesday and every Thursday on our YouTube channel, where we cover everything D&D and maybe a little bit more commentary on some other RPGs once in a while. So check that out at youtube.com/dungeondudes. With that, thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next time.